Hello, I'm Charlie Young, the Scriba town historian, and to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, Mark Heinrich and myself interviewed 9 Scriba veterans who participated in that conflict. Wars, by their very nature, are the story of the movements of large numbers of individuals working collectively. We hope to pinpoint the individual efforts through these particular televised interviews. Recognize that this is only a small segment of the people who participated in the conflict from Scriba and its vicinity, but it is in fact a way of honoring all those who did serve in World War II. We respectfully dedicate this video clip to all of those who did serve, and particularly those from Scriba and its vicinity.
Okay. I'm going to do a semaphore transmission. It will be done like a message which I would send to another ship. It will be done with the beginning and the end, and the message will be, now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. And so I'll begin. That's the end.
On July 4, 1942, Frank Church enlisted in the Army Air Corps and was called to active duty in January 1943. Church and his crew in the 39th Heavy Bombardment Squadron flew B-24 bombers outfitted with electronics equipment designed to jam and mislead German radar. Church and his crew flew 55 combat missions over the English Channel, the Rhineland, the North Sea, Normandy, northern France, in the Battle of the Bulge. Church was discharged at Fort Dix, New Jersey on September 6, 1945. Mr. Church will tell us of the missions he flew during the Battle of the Bulge.
But I think the point where most people were concerned about what was going to happen was the big German offensive, counteroffensive in late 1924, which culminated in the Battle of the Bulge. That we flew support missions over the Battle of the Bulge, carrying counter communications equipment that jammed the German communications on the ground, especially their tank communications and artillery communications. And we were sent out. There were 3 or 4 of us, crews that went out on that mission for several days. It was not a thing that a person would want to look forward to, because once we went out, we were given a pattern to fly, a very definite pattern. So many minutes on this heading and so many minutes and flying a square and oblong. Well, it didn't take long for the Germans with their radar equipment to find us. And the anti-aircraft was very heavy. In fact, it was so heavy that we left our post and flew away. We wouldn't stay there. It was the suicide to stay in that position. And we watched the planes ahead of us in this formation. Didn't seem that they can survive. Our flak was so heavy. And so our pilot said, "That's enough of this. We're not here to sacrifice ourselves. We're not here. We're not going to do any good. So let's get out of here." And we did. And I think what they did then, and after that, was to change the patterns that were being flown daily. And also, I think they could change it during the day as long as we were out there. Because that steady pattern, they could finally zero in on us because they had radar equipment to pick us up, and their anti-aircraft guns were radar directed, so they could hardly miss.
Okay.
So we knew that, so we got out of there.
Would they usually fly a few of these communications and plane that you're on, would they fly a few of those together in order to scramble their signals, or would there be just your plane that would fly around?
Well, we were up together, but they might put 7 or 8 or 10 airplanes up on the same mission, but we were far enough apart so we never saw each other.
Okay.
And once we got over Western Europe or the Scandinavia, we went up close to the Scandinavian countries to divert German aircraft, waste their gas main. And that was the main idea, was to keep them away from ballast streams and waste fuel. We even went up and flew when there were no missions. Usually it was in terrible weather because and Germans wouldn't expect anybody to be up that day, but we'd go up and turn on our equipment and it would show up on their radar screens as something. They couldn't tell what it was, but it was something that didn't belong there, so it had to be Americans or British planes. Then they would send their fighters up, and they were really short of gas wing, and fly around looking for us. That's what we wanted up to do.
We wanted to waste their gas and waste
Yes, and we're out their pilots and we're out their planes, whatever we could do to get them off the ground and on wild goose chases.
Do you have a memorable moment, one that you could categorize as the most memorable during World War II experiences?
Well, I think probably that. There's depending on what you consider a memorable one. I guess as far as actual, perhaps beer might be. Tinsler would be over the Battle of Bulge Run. I'd already told you about that. In memorable times was every time we touched down after a mission, we brought back. And another one was when I landed in Florida on my birthday of 1945.
Desmond Dutcher first enlisted in the Navy Reserves in January 1941. His unit was called to active duty in May of that year, and Dutcher joined a utility squadron. His unit towed aerial targets from planes for practice shooting by other planes and ships. After Pearl Harbor, he served throughout the Solomon Islands, New Guinea, Australia, and the Philippines. Dutcher returned to the U.S. after World War II and decided to stay with the Navy for his career. He was stationed in Japan during the Korean War. Mr. Dutcher will tell of his experience at Pearl Harbor. On December 7th, when was the first time, what was your reaction when you heard of
Well,
Japanese come?
we're in our bunks reading magazines and stuff, and we, heard this gunfire, machine guns. And being a Sunday in that, we figured it was probably the Army, coming there to challenge the Navy. They heard your guns are, combat, not really combat, but flying around there. And we looked out through this, we were on like a veranda there over the field. And we looked at and we saw these planes there and Lord, there's, flames coming out of the front of them. My God, you hear the bullets ricochet, what the heck, there's firing real ammunition. We saw the red spots on their planes, we didn't know it was Japanese, or at least I didn't. I never even gave a thought who the heck it might be. But, you deal with this, then this chief petty officer, he was running around the other part of the building there, busting out the windows so nobody could get cut by flying glass in case of explosions, blowing the glass into the building. Then they ran us downstairs to get under the mess deck, under the tables, we're supposed to be safe. Guys are streaming in off the ships, various stages of undress, and some of them pretty bad shape, They're doing what they could. They ended up laying on the tables and ministering, for nut wounds and stuff. And then they wanted somebody to get some blankets. I volunteered, but they already had enough. And then they wanted somebody to help clean some machine guns, so I went out to do that because I'd been to ordnance school and I know what the heck I was doing. And so I cleaned about 6 or 8 of them, and some guy come in, they wanted to help fire quite a fire down on the pier. What it was is pilings under this cement pier were on fire. You know, the oil on the water was burning, and it got on the pilings there. And there's guys in a motor whaleboat over the side there, spraying the hose on the pilings there to put it out. And we worked our way down, and we just got just about down to the end of it. Whoosh! We had a flashback, and we had to start all over again. We finally got it out. By then, most of the action with the Japanese was pretty well over. I went back to the barracks. They're passing out cigarettes, cokes, flows, and different things like that. And some guys are loading up their clothes, sucking their lockers and cigarettes. And, everything was for free, and boy, they took advantage of it. But, and then that night, we sat down there in my mess decks, and I loaned some got my blanket, and that was the last time I saw that. All night long, every now and then there'd be some gunfire, and then pretty soon they all opened up because they all saw something or the other. And by then, planes from the carriers, which were not in Pearl Harbor at the time, came in and started landing. And by then, everybody was armed, of course, and they shot a bunch of them down, killed them. That's where it was.
Can you describe what, maybe as you walked around later, can you describe some of the scenes that you saw?
Oh, yeah. Lord, they bombed a bunch of the buildings. Like when I went to pack parachutes and that building there was wiped out there. Full of holes and all that. Of course, all the planes were shot up and banged and bombed and straight with machine guns. And, it was really a mess around the whole island there. Of course, the ships were all laying over, sunk, burned, and it was just bad.
Carl Dickinson went into the Army on the first draft call in 1942 and was sent over to England after basic training. He landed at Utah Beach on D-Day, then moved throughout France and Holland, eventually arriving in Bastogne, Belgium. Dickinson was in the Battle of the Bulge at Bastogne and played a role in delivering the famous Nuts message of General McCulloch to the Germans. Dickinson was discharged on November 20th, 1945 at Fort Dix. Mr. Dickinson will tell us of his involvement in the Battle of the Bulge, when German officers came to U.S. lines to demand a surrender.
Can you describe what happened in the Nuts incident?
Well, I think the CD could have the day the killer they all made up is in front of me on this road to Arlon, the ARL1. They come up this road, in the center of the road, there's one soldier had a big white flag, and on each side of him, a soldier was two long open flags. And the back, and then the two officers coming up the road. So I saw them coming up the road, and so I went down to meet them. I didn't know them coming to our lines. So we stopped them down there. I had a BAR position right down in the ditch, on the road. There's a BAR man with his weapons, or with his ammunition carrier. So I left the first. This German says he has a right, according to the Hague and Geneva Conference, he had a right to deliver an ultimatum. So then wanted to be taken to my commanding officer. So they each had hanks to do. They're really dressed, leather coats, shiny boots, and really dressed beautiful. And they each took out clean handkerchiefs, and the medical officer blindfolded the other officer, and I blindfolded him. By that time, I had him blindfolded. I started back. Permits, he was our medic in our company, to assign to our company. he come down because he speak German, not knowing that this one could speak English. So he took the one that could speak German, and I took the one with the English, and we went back up the hill to our CP, and but when Lieutenant Smith was at the door, he said, "What's going on?" I told him that they wanted to deliver an ultimatum to surrender. I said, "What do you want done with him?" He said, "Take him over to the company CP, which is about a quarter mile away." So we took him over the hill, circled around a couple times, and took him over to the company CP. And that's as far as they went. We called into Bastogne, pulling what they had, and that's where the nuts, McCullough said nuts to him, and Colonel Harper brought the message back to the two guys, and we took them in, go around where we met on the road, and that's where they left.
What did the Germans think of the message that said nuts?
Well, they couldn't understand it. They couldn't understand the nuts.
Did someone explain it to them?
Yeah, I think he said it to him, go to hell or something like that. But just what the words were.
Okay.
Eddie Baker was sworn into the Marines on April 4, 1944. His first stop overseas was Guam. He spent many months there practicing maneuvers, and then on February 24, 1945, landed at Iwo Jima. Baker was not part of the initial invasion of Iwo Jima, but arrived as part of a communications platoon involved in helping to secure the other two-thirds of the island that was not yet under Allied control. Baker was discharged from the Marines on May 1, 1946, at Bainbridge, Maryland. Mr. Baker will tell of his involvement at Guam and Iwo Jima in the Pacific Theater.
You must have been in Guam for some time then.
I was there about a year.
Oh. And then from Guam you went.
To Iwo Jima. Then back to Guam.
Okay, were you in the initial invasion of Iwo Jima?
No, it was a reserve division.
Okay. But I assume you were able to see the devastation there.
Oh yeah.
When did you arrive at Guam? I mean, when did you arrive at Iwo Jima?
We went aboard ship early in February. They pulled out in the harbor, and then we sat and waited, and then finally they took off. And it took about 3 days, I guess. But we went ashore on the 24th of February.
Okay.
And what were things like when you went ashore?
I guess you could say confusion.
Great deal of gasoline.
Yeah, those pictures would give you an idea what it was like.
Were there still pockets of resistance when you landed in Iwo Jima? Or?
Up 2/3 of the island hadn't been taken yet.
Did you participate in some of the cleanup then, or?
Oh yeah. I was in the communication platoon at that time. On my discharge it says participated in action against the enemy, so yeah. That says it, I guess.
That says it.
I'd done as I was told.
Most of us did, I think. Otherwise, I assume we wouldn't get this far.
Yeah. Can you describe a little bit about maybe like just what one day was like while you were at Iwo Jima? What did you wake up to? What was it?
What day like?
Why, you just woke up and got your little can of rations for breakfast, and some days you didn't do anything, just wait around. Some days I'd make a trip to A Company, or some days I'd take a trip back to regiment.
Okay. You were a messenger, runner.
How long were you on Iwo Jima?
We left early in April.
And so when you left back to Guam, what was the island like then? Almost all secure when you were up?
Yeah. There was an army outfit came in that garrisoned it.
Okay.
Garrison troops, and the Air Force used it. That's where they based their fighter planes. When the B-29s went over, they'd pick up their escort and went over Japan.
Okay.
Don Kocher enlisted in the Air Force on September 18, 1942, and went through an extensive 1.5 years of training. In September 1944, he left for England, where he began training in the P-51 Mustang airplane, in which he would fly most of his 43 combat missions. He belonged to the 357th Fighter Group and flew mostly bomber escort missions. Kocher returned to the U.S. in December 1945 and joined the Air Force Reserves. Mr. Kocher will tell us of the time he crashed his P-51 fighter plane over Germany.
I never got a shot at a German until 19th of April of 45, and caught up with a ME-262, which was a German jet, one of the first jet, the only jet they had in the air in those days. It was a good 100 miles an hour faster than we were. You would see them all the time. You couldn't catch them. Yeah. They would. I remember one day following one of the 262s, and they was shooting at the bombers, and I couldn't catch them. I could see I knew he was shooting because there was smoke rings coming out of the cannon. And I could see the flashes of the bombers firing back at him. I almost got up to him, but they saw me coming and they pulled up. They go up like this, whatever going on. They were full of fun too. Once in a while, they'd find one studying on we had four-man flight formation, and sometimes you see a fifth guy out there. It was one of them. Right. On the outer wing. They never did shoot at anybody in my squad, in my group. I think they probably had orders to get the bombers away from the home cities.
Okay.
There's the one guy on the 19th of April. I caught up with him close enough to get some hits on him anyway. I could see a few strikes. We had armor-piercing incendiaries, and when they hit, they'd flash. Broke out that you could pick up. Yeah, we had a movie camera out there. It was aimed with the guns, and they'd take a picture of everything you shot. Or shot at. Anyway, I got a credit for that. The damaged one. That was it. And then, but I think I wrecked my engine doing it because the next day it quit on me over there. I was at about 10 miles east of Hanover. Luckily, it was our own territory. And this is one of the most memorable things that happened to me. I guess being a farm boy, I had a lot of adventure, but this was, I landed without wheels because it was a plowed field, and I didn't want it to flip it upside down. The wheel would catch in the dirt and flip it. It was kind of a rough landing, but they got down fine, got out of it. A couple guys came out of the woods, and I thought they were probably German soldiers, because I wasn't sure when I was which side of the line I was on. Well, I had a 45 there, but I wasn't about to tackle the whole German army with that. So these two guys came up, and they said something about the aircraft with kaput. Like 3 of them, I guess it was. Whatever that was. So I asked them where the American Army was. They're American soldiers. In English, of course, because I didn't have any German. Well, they pointed down across the field toward the road, and she was, a couple seconds later, a gray truck came up. Oh my God, gray German, that's not American. Well, it was all dusty. It wasn't American. They were combat engineers.
Ernie Girard was sworn in at Albany on September 10, 1943, and then he trained as a signalman. His ship left November 1944 for Oahu, Hawaii, and then on to Guadalcanal and Bougainville in the South Pacific to load and discharge cargo. Later he went to the Philippines, where his ship came in contact with Japanese planes. Girard was discharged from the Navy on April 8, 1946 in New York. He died on July 16, 1995, shortly after this interview. Mr. Girard will tell us of the Japanese air attacks in the landing at Lingayen Gulf in the Philippines.
And December, the 27th of December for 1944, we're underway on the sailing towards orders towards Lingayen Gulf and Luzon and the Philippine Islands. And it was quite a long voyage, which took our convoy into the islands. And then we're the 7th of January 1945. We made the first convoy with the first contact with the enemy at sundown and several Japanese planes made an attack on the convoy's starboard side, and we got to apparent 2 planes are shot down, possible one damage to one of the ships, and on the 8th we got more. We had more attacks coming, and on the 9th of January we arrived in the morning, early in the morning at Lingayen Gulf, and then we came in, got close to shore, but we didn't make a beaching until 10 a.m. at Lingayen Gulf.
Okay. Okay. And then at 10 a.m. you pulled up right to the beach and unloaded.
Before we got to the beach, early in the morning, we unloaded the ducks that we had on board, and they took the aircraft that was on them and went ashore and put the wings on the aircraft. The wings were folded back to make it possible for them to travel on the ducks and get in aboard a ship. And then they went ashore and put the aircraft together and went on reconnaissance missions. And they used to stop back and visit with us a good many times. Well, of course, they were on board our ship over a month. And we got to know the fellows real well, and it got to be sort of friends. And so anytime that they wanted to stop for lunch, why they were invited to come aboard, and they would, of course, with a Piper Cup, the beach is a landing strip. So if we were on the beach, they could hop in for lunch, drive right up to the bow, and walk aboard. And they were, we had a very good relationship with the Army in this particular way.
Now, this landing was accomplished without much opposition?
Yeah, there were a few things that did happen there. They dropped there was a few mortars and so forth. We had one bomb was dropped off of our port bow, inflicting only one casualty, and he was taken off, and he came back a few days later. And we were one time when we were leaving the beach one time, one of those big combers come up and we nearly flipped us over. And
on February 16, 1943, Robert Hogan was drafted into the Army at Syracuse, and he completed basic training in the Mojave Desert, California. He landed in England on December 16, 1943, as part of the 14th Mechanized Cavalry. Hogan drove a jeep transporting officials and delivering marching orders to troops. Hogan participated in campaigns in Normandy, northern France, the Ardennes, Central Europe, and the Battle of the Bulge. Hogan was discharged at Fort Dix on October 27, 1945. Mr. Hogan will share with us his experiences during the landing at Normandy.
Now, when did you land in England?
England, December 16th, 43.
So basically you were preparing for the invasion of Europe.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep. Yep. And we just had maneuvers like every day. We had some maneuvers set out. There was, what was about to come and everything. We never knew until the last week that we were going ready. We expected to go to Africa, actually.
Okay.
Okay. Were you training on maneuvers to prepare for Africa?
More or less, yeah. That's why the Mojave Desert deal, how to get along, little water and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then when you did the cross-channel invasion, what day did you go in?
June, we landed June 8th.
Okay.
And 44.
Okay.
The main foot troops and paratroopers now in on the 6th. 6 o'clock in the morning on 6. But we had our vehicles at school.
Okay.
We went across the channel on the LCT, Van Crafting, which is an open crass.
Was the channel rough?
Oh,
Sure, with flag.
Yeah.
So, and then so you landed with your jeeps, and where did you go from there?
We got off the beach just
Yeah, I think you could. Yeah.
and then we went inland about probably 4 or 5 miles and sort of assembled there. It was near town, the first town actually it took was St. Mary Oakleys. I call it Oakleys. I don't know. That's St. Mary Oakleys. Because, I mean, that was about the first French town that even the paratroopers all landed near there.
Okay. All right. On which of the beaches did you land at?
We landed on Utah. There's Omaha was where the quests were, and landed on Utah because it was more level. I don't know if that's why.
And let's see, this was 2 days after the landing, so that landing was pretty secure.
No,
No?
okay.
No, and that.
No, there's, bodies and everything all around, Okay. Of wood that there, nothing, every minute there's clean, straight in it, so it was kind of,
Harry.
yeah.
When you land on the beach, you just drove the jeeps right up the beach and on your way.
What they did is they had these floating platforms they made in England, and they towed them over, and then when the tide come in, they cover them up. So they had a CB come out and lead the first vehicle, make sure it stayed on the track, and because you couldn't really see it. And then you drove underwater with the jeeps and everything.
Really?
Yeah, you had a big from the carburetor had a flex. He's also a flex pipe. And the man with it, he'd stand up or keep choking it, and you'd have to stand up. Or they put it under butter, really. That was all AWAC of it.
World War II brought about many social changes in the United States. Lena Corbett was part of that change as she joined the Women's Army Corps, WWII, on June 6, 1944. She went to basic training at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, and joined Company 8, 22nd Regiment. Corbett worked in the Adjutant General's office in Vienna, where she was responsible for issuing passes for soldiers to leave the base. After her service in World War II ended in 1948, she joined the WWII Reserves and later served in the Korean War. Mrs. Corbett will tell of her duties and involvement during the war.
Then you were assigned where?
To Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. Zep Port of Embarkation.
And what were your duties there?
Well, I was up in AG, which are called the Adjutant General's office. And then I worked in orders quite a bit.
And your job?
Then we'd have to go over in the other area when there was thousands of troops came in, to be. And we'd all be, we were, couldn't leave the post or anything ourselves. And you had to work, because everything anyone does in the service has to have a piece of paper with all these different regulations in order to get paid, in order to get moved, and so forth. In fact, we had to bring General Clark home strictly by surface. Oh, he couldn't fly. That was when I was overseas, because I was in orders then.
First start.
That's correct. He was my commanding officer when I first got to Vienna. And then, once in a while, I'd be up front and in the headquarters and to greet and so forth. Generally, they had you busy.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, from Camp Kilmer, you went overseas
Uh-huh.
to London?
No. Well, I went in through La Havre.
Oh, okay. Right through the camp.
Yeah, we went, we'd ended right in La Havre.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't know if they could land there yet because it was quite a mess. Yes. Because, see, that was early 46. See, and the hostilities had just gotten over. And, of course...
It would be early 45, right?
No, 46, early 46, when I went overseas.
Oh, I see.
Uh-huh.
All right.
I was stationed at Camp Kilmer until early 46.
Oh, okay.
And then let's see, in fact, I think it was June 3rd that we left the port.
Oh, yes.
Out of New York, and we went right to the harbor. But when I left the States, they already knew where I was going to go. See, that's what I was trying to tell you. The hostilities were over. They had stopped sending wax over for a while when the mop-ups things were being done. And we went to replace the men, the frontline men and different men in this in office work, you see. So I went right over into AG orders in Vienna.
In February 1942, Gene Himes was part of the first draft call in the Army. He joined the 4th Division Foot Infantry and was sent to England in March 1944 to prepare for the cross-channel invasion of Normandy. He landed at Utah Beach on D-Day, June 6, 1944, and made his way into Europe. Himes was twice injured in the line of duty. He returned to Fort Dix and was discharged on August 31st, 1945. Mr. Himes will share with us his experiences at the Normandy landing and as he moved throughout France.
Yeah, what sort of a boat did you go over at?
Well, we started out landing craft infantry. That's what we loaded on the 4th, because we were supposed to land the 5th. But boy, it was rough. There's everything, boats are bad and all around. So we went back in a cove and stayed there. And then they decided to 6th D-Day. And we loaded, we couldn't get on that, so we loaded on to the landing crafts. That's what it was, didn't have landing crafts. Channel, I would guess, was still, boy, it was bobbing. I mean, one time you're looking down, next time you're looking to the sky. It was rough.
And so you went on
Boats all around. I mean, channel right full of boats.
Yeah.
Battleships. We had the Texas battle wagon back of us. Okay. And there was a rocket ship, because every time you make a pass, you shoot rockets over your head. So everything was going over your head all around. I mean, they were really shelling the shore. Wow. But when we went in, when the boat went down, you could see the beach. Got close enough that you could see the stuff all fly up there. There's artillery on the beach down there. No, there's no hitting. So and then when you went up, you couldn't see nothing. And when you dropped down, so I said, the only way we're going to make that there's a lull in there. When they don't bound to shell that beach, well, we'll make it across. But we did. We got across. We landed them. Well, we hit a big sandbar before we hit shore, so we waded the water up to here, trying to run through water that deep. You couldn't run, just push against it. We got out. We got across, most of us. Two guy up. We got up on the bluffs and got over that.
Which beach was this, Jane?
Utah.
And
Omaha, 1st Division winner. They got hit pretty bad in Omaha. But we missed where we should have hit. They said it was so rough and the current was pulled us way off to the right. So we didn't really hit where we were supposed to. We were way off to the right where we were supposed to hit it. But after we got inland, like we saw it, it moved along a little that time.
Could you describe them? Can you describe a little bit about what the beach looked like when you arrived? What Utah Beach looked like as far as...
I didn't look too much. I just run like a son of a hell when I hit that shore. I didn't look around too much.
No time for sightseeing.
I didn't run like happened, so everybody had gone off mad because they were shelling it.
Okay.
This then is the story of World War II from the perspective of 9 people who participated in that event. We would be remiss in not paying particular tribute to the 5 people from Scriba who paid the supreme sacrifice of their lives in their participation in this war. These 5 are Lynn Holliday, David Sawyer, Curtis Schaub, and Donald Wright. We recognize that there are perhaps people in the audience who would like to participate in this video project of World War II. We would be most happy to schedule appointments with anyone who would be willing to add to our archives. Thank you.
Coming in on a wing and a prayer. Coming in on a wing How we sing as we learn through the air. Look below, there's our field over there. With our foes through aboard and our thoughts in love. We're coming in on a wing and a prayer.
And we'll all say dream. Praise the Lord, it's laid into position. Can afford to sail around the wishing. Thanks aboard, they're off to take pictures. Yes, the sky pilot said it. You gotta give it credit for a son. Daughter was sweet. Thanks aboard, we're on a mighty mission. All aboard, we're not fishing. Praise aboard to pass the ammunition. And we'll all say free. Let's remember Pearl Harbor as we go to meet our fall. Let's remember Pearl Harbor as we did the out of all. We will always remember up and down liberty.